Welcome friends to a buyer's guide video for the 2013 to 2020 Lexus GS 350. I've covered this car before, and in the description box I'm going to have a video where I cover the detailed specs, the various model year changes, and even some cool interesting facts. I'm going to have that video in the description box, and in this buyer's guide I'm going to be focused on the 350 model with the 3.5 liter V6 engine, because that is the bread and butter, ultimate reliability. I have driven the GS 450H, the hybrid. I do love that car. It is really impressive, really fast. However, I'm going to be avoiding that, as well as the turbo model, of course, because these are the more complex vehicles. If you're shopping in the used car market, you want less complexity and the most simple car possible. So that's why I'm going to be focused on the GS 350. It's just an easy way of eliminating the complex options. But before we continue, I would like to say I am proud to partner with Dream Giveaway. So my audience has an opportunity to win a 2023 Porsche Cayman GT4 RS. That is a proper sports car. And not only that, they're also throwing in $47,000 in cash, and you're also supporting a great cause because Dream Giveaway is partnered with multiple charities as well. When you use my promo code in the pinned comment, Dream Giveaway will double your entries if you buy more than 20 tickets. So I really appreciate them doing that for my audience. The promo code is MAYN, M-E-Y-N, just like my channel. So best of luck to anyone who enters. But back to the video. I'm going to be covering various resources that you can use to do your own research. I'm going to be going through the various issues, problems, the current GS market and pricing, along with alternatives, and then we can conclude. But just so you know, this is a car that I really like. It's an impressive driving experience. It's practical. I think it personally looks great. And yeah, it's just a phenomenal package. But in the buying market section, you're going to see the price is also going to reflect that. Many other people seem to share my same sentiments. So right now, let's go ahead and let's get into the potential issues that you can run into with these cars. As always, I like to start off by sharing with you NHTSA.gov. This is an excellent website that you can come to research the various issues that a car could potentially have. We have 4 sections here: the complaints, the recalls, investigations, and manufacturer communications, also known as TSBs or technical service bulletins. This is an important section because this is where the manufacturer themselves find issues with their own product. And I just typed in a 2015 GS 350. 240 of these manufacturer communications pop up, but that does not mean that this car has 240 issues. A lot of this is redundancy or some frivolous things, but I'll come to that later. Recalls is a great place to start because you can see everything that the dealership is going to cover for you for free. And the one recall that we have here is the fuel pump. This is a common issue with these cars, but not to worry, because you take your car to a Lexus dealership, they will replace your fuel pump for free because they have to. It's a recall. It can potentially affect your life. So the dealership will take care of that, no problem. I really like the complaint section because this is where owners like you and me write in, and we have 15 complaints. Many of them have to do with steering and stability. A few owners reported that the car is pulling to the right, or it feels like it's darting around. But what you have to note is these cars are pretty solid. These cars are very reliable for what it is, especially when you compare it to its competitors. These are not super problematic cars. I would just say stay away from the 2013 model year because that was the first model year of this generation. With every car, I always tell people, in the used car market, you have the luxury of choice, and if you can make a choice, avoid the first model year. Those cars came with the 6-speed automatic though, even in the rear-wheel drive models, and some people in the forums claim that that's the most reliable transmission. I don't know where they got that from, I think the 8-speed is just fine too, but that's a common debate, between the 6-speed and the 8-speed. After driving both, I like the way both of them feel. That's not an issue. I don't really care, but if I had a choice, I would just go with the 8-speed simply because it looks better on paper, right? It's simply a spec sheet thing, but they both drive fine. If you need all-wheel drive in the area that you live in, don't worry about it. Get the all-wheel drive. You shouldn't have any issues with the 6-speed automatic. I personally didn't. I like the way it drives. But anyway, the door lock power actuators, they tend to go wrong, but that's something that you can potentially fix yourself. Maybe look up some YouTube tutorials, because I think if you go to a dealership or any other place, they might charge you a lot of money to get that done. Some individuals, they've had their sunroof explode on them. That's not a common thing, but when that happens to you, that really sucks. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a really dangerous thing that can go wrong. But that's not just with the Lexus GS, that's almost any car with a sunroof. Over time, it's possible that something can happen and the sunroof can explode. So that's one reason why I'm not a huge fan of sunroofs, but many luxury cars come with them. This individual was in California when that happened, and he would hear, popping sounds and cracking sounds coming from the sunroof before it happened. And this was at approximately 83,000 miles. Another individual, this is very interesting, their rear armrest ignited in flames and burned up. They're saying that the fire could have been caused by a electrical issue. So it's things like this where, okay, the car might not be unreliable or anything, but come on, like, these are some crazy things that are happening to some of these individuals. And this is the thing, people ask, oh, is this car reliable? I mean, that's an impossible question to answer because cars are random. You have no idea what can happen to you. You hear about how some people say, oh, I have 300,000 miles on my car and I never changed the oil and I've never had an issue. You hear plenty of those stories, but what if you end up buying this car and you're the guy with the exploding sunroof and the burned up rear armrest? What if you're that person? That's really unfortunate. And the point of this video is not for me to go through every little issue that can potentially pop up. I mainly want to share with you the resource so you can go out and do your own research on whatever car you're interested in, but I just want to pick out a few highlights here. Another one that a person complained about is the Mark Levinson audio system and the amp that tends to go bad with a lot of these used Lexus products with the ML audio. It's a great audio system, but that amp is something to watch out for. I want to move on to another resource known as carcomplaints.com because they take pretty much the same information as NHTSA and they compile it in a more easier to understand format. For instance, they lay out the TSBs in a way where you can do Control F on your computer and you can just easily sort through the various TSBs based on, transmission or suspension, etc. You can obviously run into suspension issues with these big, heavy luxury cars, right? Like control arms, bushings. Brakes can be warped rather easily with these big, heavy luxury cars that are also on the performance side. People are going to be driving these cars hard and they're going to be stomping on the brakes, and that's going to cause the brakes to warp. Changing out pads, rotors, and doing a proper alignment on some of these cars, that alone can fix a lot of the stability issues that some people might be having with a used car. And yes, those are certainly TSBs highlighted in carcomplaints.com with various noises or squeaks or vibrations coming from the brakes or the suspension. That is something that they have noted here throughout the various TSBs. So that's another powerful resource right there. And of course you have the forums like Club Lexus. You can come here and once again you can see what owners are talking about. Again, with forums or with any other website, people typically write in when they start having issues, right? One person has a bad experience, they blow it up online, and then you start to think, oh, every car is going to be like this. And that's not true. Most of these cars are going to be reliable. Some of those people with the 300 and 500,000 miles, they kind of like to pretend they are the rule and not the exception. That's like the other extreme of things. Yes, these cars are reliable, but it is important to take into consideration the people with issues and what can potentially go wrong, because as we're about to see in the used car market, if you're serious about buying one of these cars, it's going to cost you a lot of money and you're not going to have a warranty 9 times out of 10. It's going to be too old or very high mileage, so nobody has your back. You literally need to fork out the money yourself, or you need to figure out how to fix it yourself. And on Club Lexus, we have a owner here with the GS. He's had it for 2 years. He loves the car, but he's having issues. And he feels like if it's not one thing, it's another. He's had a bad steering rack. He's had the seal on his sunroof go wrong, as well as some clunking sounds when he goes over potholes. And this individual has a beautiful GS 350 F Sport. I believe it's in atomic silver, and it's a great car. It's wonderful, but even if the car is not causing any issues, you still have to maintain it, swap out tires, do all these regular things. And if an issue does pop up, now you have to take care of that as well. And you just don't notice your money just slowly bleeding away when you deal with some of these used cars. So as nice as these vehicles are, yeah, it's important to understand you're out of warranty and you're going to be on the hook for anything that pops up. You're obviously on the hook for the maintenance, that's for sure. And we have another post here from Club Lexus from an individual asking if they should avoid the 2013. I personally think you should. It's the first year, right? But many people, they've reported that they haven't had any issues at all and they love their car, and that's good. But another person was saying, oh, the early model cars, they drove great, they handled better than the refreshed 2016 and up cars. I'm going to address that here in a moment, but he was saying that there were minor issues with the first few model years, like a faulty AC fan seal, and I did see some HVAC TSBs as well from Lexus. But there's various little small issues like that. Again, you can avoid most of it if you just buy a slightly newer model year. But regarding this individual's comment on the first generation cars driving better, I used to think that because I've driven several of these cars, all right, throughout the years. I've probably driven like 7 or 8. The very first one I tried was a mint condition, 40,000 mile 2016 GS 350 F Sport. You would think, oh, that car should drive perfectly. You would be absolutely wrong. That car was sluggish, slow, both in actual speed and just slow to react in general with the transmission. The handling somehow felt sloppy. It was just, in general, a very sloppy car. In fact, after that experience, I really hated the GS. It was the first one I ever drove, and I was like, what is this? This is true garbage. And then I proceeded to drive several more from the 2013 to 2015 cars and the refreshed 2016 to 2020. I've driven several since then, and every other GS I drove after was perfect. They all drove great. I drove a 2013 with over 250,000 miles. The car was excellent. There was no issues with it. A perfect driving experience. Drove several 2015s. Once again, no issues. I drove the newer cars. Okay, I drove a base model 2017 non-F Sport. I put the car in eco mode and it drove better and sharper than the 2016 car with 40,000 miles on it. And that was an F Sport. Okay, that 2017 car, that base model, the engine sounded better. It reacted quicker. The transmission performance was perfect and the handling was sharp. And then I later drove a 2020, the last model year. Same story. It was just perfect down the board, no issues. There is a subtle difference between the 2016 and up cars compared to the first few model years. Handling is slightly better, but it feels a little bit smoother, if you will. A little bit more luxurious, but all of the same sports sedan handling characteristics, that's all there. It's a very unique combination. But the point I'm trying to make is I drove the same car but had a drastically different experience. And I think part of that is because you have no idea how some of these previous owners took care of their vehicles. For instance, Lexus recommends that owners put premium fuel in these V6 engines. But does anybody do that? Hardly anyone. In fact, I even saw an individual at Costco in an affluent neighborhood put regular fuel in his Lexus LS 460. I'm guessing 9 out of 10 people, they are not utilizing premium fuel in their Lexus cars. And maybe that's why that 2016 GS F Sport with 40k miles felt so sluggish. I don't know. But the point is, do not buy any car without driving it. That doesn't just go for used cars, that goes for new ones as well. I've driven some new cars that feel absolutely awful, and then I get into another one that feels drastically better. All over the place. You cannot predict this stuff. You don't know what issues you're gonna have, and you don't know what the car is truly gonna drive like. Make sure you get a pre-purchase inspection. Make sure you have a high quality mechanic nearby where you live that you trust. Have them go over the car. Make sure you do a thorough test drive in it. Put the car in its various driving modes and see how it feels over a variety of bumps and on the highway, etc. This is part of the reason why I'm not really doing as many car reviews like I used to. After learning just how drastically different used cars and even new cars can be, I decided I would spend more of my time educating people through these buyer's guide videos with these various resources and the best way to purchase cars as well. I feel like this information is far more important and useful than a simple driving review. That's important for sure, and I'm still going to do them and take it very seriously, but you should know the reality of both used and new cars and just how much variance you can experience. In the next segment, let's go ahead and let's talk pricing and the current Lexus GS market. Okay, I like to use cargurus.com because you can filter out the various accident cars, the salvage title, etc. The reason why I want to do this is because you have no idea how some of these body shops put these cars back together. It'll simply never be back to that OEM spec. So I like to avoid that, and also cars with an accident on the Carfax, they simply will not get good resale value. Anyway, I filtered all those cars out. I'm looking at 2013 to 2020 model years, and we have a little over 300 available for sale throughout the country. Prices range from $11,000 all the way up to $44,000. That's your range. Again, go to Edmunds so you can see the official spec sheet for the car, and also within that spec sheet they show you the original MSRP pricing for those particular model years, along with how much the options cost for that model year as well. And yeah, we're still in a hyperinflated used car market, and as I mentioned before, avoid the 2013. So when you sort by 2014 and up, now you're only left with 245 cars throughout the country, and you're most likely going to be paying around $15,000. And these are cars that are 10 years old with 150,000 miles on it. That is crazy, and this is part of the reason why it's so hard for me to recommend this car and most cars in the used car market. This is just too old and too high of mileage. And once again, no warranty. You have no protection when you buy these cars. You're on the hook for anything that's going to pop up. Not to mention, some owners complained that as the cars got older, the interior really started to deteriorate and some of the leather panels simply weren't holding up very well. That's something else to keep in mind. I've been in some high mileage cars and they hold up okay for what it is, but it's the pricing, man. It's so hard to stomach this. In my Toyota 4Runner video, I said you might want to purchase a higher mileage version simply because you can get that 4Runner at the end of its depreciation curve, because a low mileage example that was slightly newer went for almost as much as a new 4Runner. So it made no sense to buy like that semi-new used car. In this instance, even if you bought a certified pre-owned GS 350, those range between $36,000 to $43,000. First of all, that's not a big savings compared to the people that bought new GSs. And also with that, you will get a 2-year warranty and 2 years of free maintenance. That's effectively what you're getting with the CPO Lexus. That's good, but again, paying about 36 grand, that's a lot of money. You're gonna see a lot of other CPO cars listed on CarGurus, but they're at like random dealerships like Honda or Chrysler. Those are not real CPO cars. It's only a true certified pre-owned vehicle if it's at a Lexus dealership. So don't let these other dealerships fool you. Anyway, even CPO, these are 4 to 5 year old cars with mileage on it. Honestly, at that point, you might be better off just buying a brand new Lexus IS 350 F Sport. Take advantage of discounts and incentives, and that's personally what I would do. That's a slightly smaller car, but you're gonna have to say screw it to the people sitting in the back seat and deal with a slightly smaller trunk, because I would rather take that than a CPO GS, if I'm gonna be honest with you. These prices are just too insane. You can hardly even take advantage of these cars at the end of its depreciation curve because you're still paying around $15,000. And when you go that route, I mean, you're on the hook for everything, you know, and you have to worry about maintenance, tires, etc. All that falls on you. When you lease and dump new cars, I mean, you need perfect credit to do that. You might even need cash if you're gonna do like a one-pay lease, but you don't have to worry about repairs, maintenance, tires, oil changes. I mean, I haven't paid for any of these things in 8 years, but it's a privilege to lease cars. Not everyone can do that. Some people drive too much, others don't have the credit to take advantage of a lease. But in the description box below, I will have a free leasing calculator provided to you by AutoCompanion. He's a broker in the Washington, D.C. area. He offers Lexus deals, and I believe he's at 11% off MSRP on the IS350 F Sports. That's like $5,800 off, and if you lease the car, you get an additional $1,000 or $1,500 in incentives. So that's a pretty big discount. You're getting a $53,000 car for around $45,000, $46,000. So that's the other thing. Many people think that new cars aren't for them. They just need to be savvy enough to find the discounts and the incentives, and they need the resources in order to research these things, because a lot of people, they count themselves out from the new car market when in fact sometimes buying a new car is cheaper than some of these used cars. With these used vehicles, you don't have favorable interest rates, and there's no incentives, and there's hardly any discounts, so they're not going to budge too much from these stated used car prices. And when you do a traditional car finance, most banks, they front load the interest. So the first few years of your car loan, you're making very little equity in the car because the majority of your payments, they're going towards the interest and not the principal. That's why so many people end up underwater with their financed cars after like 3 years. So if you can get a low interest rate lease, that's really powerful because the majority of your payments are going towards the equity and not just the interest. One-pay leases can reduce the interest rate even further on a lease, something else to keep in mind. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's conclude. Alright, well, as you can see, I'm a huge fan of the GS. It's an epic driving car if everything checks off, and it was a well-maintained example. Yeah, it drives great. I like the looks, it's very practical, huge trunk, that's all great. And all things considered, it is a pretty reliable machine. Obviously, people have had issues, but it's not even that which is deterring me. It's the used car prices. It's simply overinflated. The used car market, I guess it agrees with me. It also understands how good of a vehicle this is. From a driving standpoint, practicality, reliability, it's just a phenomenal package. Heck, I even did a comparison with a Porsche Panamera. I kid you not, both of these cars drive identical. A 2015 Panamera and a 2015 GS, it wasn't even an F Sport, and literally they both drove identical to one another. That's how good these cars are. That's why I'm so high on it. But at these prices, it's hard for me to recommend. I know leasing and buying new cars, it doesn't work for everyone, but in this instance, yeah, I would just go out, take advantage of a new IS350 F Sport with 11% off MSRP and whatever incentives I can stack on top of that. And I would just make those $500-$600 payments every month. And because these cars have relatively good resale value, I'm guessing I would have some equity left over at the end of the lease, which is cool, but I would just consider buying the car out at the end of the lease simply because you were the first owner of that IS350 when you did the lease, and you know exactly how you treated the car. You know you put premium fuel in that car. So at the end of the lease, it's worth buying that vehicle out if you love it. Whereas with all of these used examples, you have no idea how those previous owners treated the vehicle and if they put premium fuel in it. It's a lot to consider, but if you at least have a good high quality mechanic around you, or if you yourself are good with a wrench, then I guess you can consider one of these cars. And if you're currently an owner, please let us know how the vehicle has held up for you. If you appreciate my insights and the various resources that I've shared in this video, make sure to like and subscribe. But thank you so much for watching. Take care and goodbye.